The police radio buzzed with static. We got a double homicide reported at City Lake. Any units in the area, go check it out. The cop in the police cruiser pulled the talkie to his mouth. I'm in the area and I'm on my way over. He clipped the radio back into place and pulled out of the dirt road where he was patrolling. The dark and stormy night promised not many drivers out, but still a couple of cars drove by every now and then. It was a short drive to the lake, only a few miles down the road. Pulling into the clearing, the headlight beam shone on two dead figures lying on the gravel. Oh, sweet mother! The cop got out of his car and grabbed his gear. He flicked on his flashlight to examine the scene and the bodies. The victims had been bleeding. Their nose and upper lip were painted red with blood, as well as their ears. Dozens of slits and cuts were found all over the body, and blood had streamed out and into pools on the ground. It was a grisly scene, and the victims, one male and one female, had tattered and muddy clothes. Their faces had been mutilated and scratched heavily. The cop hurried back to his cruiser. He picked up his radio once more. I've confirmed 2 dead victims, male and female. Over. While waiting for a response, movement caught his eye, just outside the car. He scanned the area but saw nothing but gravel and the lake. Copy that, officer. We're sending forensics over now, came the reply from the radio. Then again he saw the movement, this time in front of the car by the victims. Drawing his gun and flashlight, the cop got out of his car. Hey! Who's there? He called into the pitch blackness. No reply. Mine's playing tricks on me, the officer concluded, lowering his weapon. Then came the soft pitter-patter of feet on gravel behind him. He turned. What the? Nothing. Then he heard it. A soft, faint sound, distinctly like a flute. The same tune played over and over again, slowly growing louder. The cop spun around, aiming his flashlight at his surroundings, trying desperately to locate the source of the sound. The music kept growing louder until the officer was sure it was right beside him. He felt warm liquid trickle out of his ears as his vision slowly blurred. He turned to run, but his feet wouldn't move, as if he was frozen in place. Then, suddenly, he began to walk towards the river. However, it was not him that was walking. He felt as though someone was pushing him with an invisible hand. He continued to be pushed until he was waist deep into the river. His vision cleared as he looked at the shore and saw where the music was coming from. All he could make out was a pair of hands holding a pan flute and a set of eyes watching him. They were blood red, and the cop found it impossible to tear his gaze away. He felt the river floor begin to sink under his weight faster and faster. The once waist-deep water had grown to neck-deep almost instantaneously. Realizing what was happening, he tried ignoring the music, but somehow it continued as strong as ever. He heard it even when he covered his ears. He felt himself sink into the river even farther, still not able to move. All he could do was stand helplessly, listening to the music he was sure would be his last. Then he sunk. Deeper, deeper. The last thing he would ever hear was the mesmerizing song of the piper. Nearly half an hour later, the forensics team arrived. The 3 men got their gear out and walked to the scene of the murder. The police cruiser's lights shone on the dead victims, but the officer was nowhere to be found. Officer Blake, go look for the officer on duty, the lead forensic scientist told his colleague. The other 2 began to investigate the murder. Both victims have what appears to be hemorrhage in both ears. One said, confused. They're bleeding from the nose as well, the other pointed out. His partner nodded. But other than that, there are no wounds, he pondered. Same with the woman, the other said, lifting the female victim's body up to steady her front side. Then The other officer called to them. "Guys, I see something in the water." He choked, aiming his flashlight at the riverbank. A figure was just barely visible under the light. The other two waded into the water. "What is it?" Officer Blake asked nervously. The two men reached in the water and fished their hands around. "What's in the—" The two forensic scientists heaved the body out of the river and onto the gravel shore. His ripped and muddy uniform signified he was the officer on duty. The rookie, Officer Blake, turned his head from the gruesome sight. "Blake, go call this in." As the two officers investigated the third body, they were unaware of another set of eyes watching them from the bushes. The man brought a pan flute to his lips.